What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hunt, and I'm back with another solo episode. And today is nutrition myths. Actually, I'm planning on doing a kind of a series here where I'm going to talk about nutrition myths today. And then in an upcoming episode, I'm going to go over training myths, maybe just like kind of general training myths. And then the next one will be specific powerlifting myths. And then kind of see the feedback off from those first couple episodes, and then maybe we'll dig into, I don't know, maybe kind of doing like a myth series per se. I don't know, depending on how it goes. And I want to talk to you for a second how I came across this. I kind of came across this idea, and it was back a few episodes ago when I recorded like 2 solo episodes back to back. I did one Q&A and then one I can't remember what the other one was, but I talked a lot about nutrition in those 2 episodes. And of course, I got good feedback, and I also received a lot of emails and messages from those, which is great. I love hearing from you guys, and if you guys ever have any questions about something that I say, about something one of the guests say, feel free to shoot me an email, kylehuntfitness@gmail.com, or shoot me a message on Instagram @huntfitness, Facebook, however you follow me, because I love hearing from you guys, and I want to be here for you. I want to be able to provide value more than just the podcast. If you have a question, feel free to ask it. And it also, when I get a question, it gives me good feedback from, not only from, hey, someone was listening to the podcast, that's great. I enjoy, that part of it, but also just I get the questions and I get an idea of what the viewership is thinking based off from the episodes. So based off from those 2 solo episodes where I talked a lot about nutrition, the main thing I got was, okay, maybe there's some things that might seem basic, quote unquote basic or obvious to someone who's listened to all 100 and some episodes or been following me for years and following my content for years. The shit that I'm assuming is kind of basic or obvious. Maybe I shouldn't, brush over it so quickly. Maybe I should take a step back and address some of these common nutrition myths that a lot of people have. And it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's no one's fault. I honestly feel like it's the industry's fault. This is a huge industry. The supplement industry, the nutrition industry, it's a $1 billion industry, huge industry. And that's actually a good thing, because whenever there's money involved in the industry, it allows people to have careers based off that industry. In a way, that kind of trickles down to how I have a career in the industry. So I'm not against that at all. But whenever there is a bunch of money in an industry, that means there's money to be made, and that also means people are going to spend a lot of money advertising and really getting good at marketing and sales and trying to sell you on ideas. Everybody listening to this right now, including myself talking right this second, every one of us, we've been sold either a product, an idea, a concept that was complete bullshit, and we either spent money on it or they sold our brain to think it was true. All of us. Every single one of us. And I remember when I first got into this, when I was in high school, I believed everything. Shit. When you first get into this, or even you've been into it for a while, and if you're really passionate about it, even this kind of speaks to me still to this day a little bit, we just want to make gains. We just want to lose fat, build muscle, get stronger, make progress. So if you really want to make progress, you'll believe anything to an extent, And I think that's kind of good in a way, because you want to have an open mind. Even as you advance in your information and in your knowledge, you want to have an open mind to still be able to learn. You never want to think you know too much, or you never want to think you know it all. You definitely don't want to do that. So you got to have an open mind. But with an open mind, in an industry that's spending a lot of money to sell you products and sell you really concepts and bullshit, you got to be careful that even if you know better, you can still get sold. So even if you've been listening to this and been following me for a while or a student of nutrition and training, there's still going to be some gems in this podcast. Maybe you've heard these things before, but it doesn't hurt to hear them again. And for those of you who might be newer to the game, then this is perfect. This is your episode. This is your episode. Don't feel bad. Like, hey, we all are coming to this from a different place, and this is important. This stuff's important. This is the building blocks. This is the basics. This is shit that we all need to know. So I'm going to try to cover, I have some shit written down. I'm going to try to cover a bunch of things, but this isn't going to be a terribly long episode. I've been in the office all morning just grinding. Woke up early, did some studying, did some reading, did some client work, did some website work, did a lot of stuff. But it's almost time for me to train. I got to get out of here. But I hold myself to my to-do list. And on my to-do list, I put down my main priority for the day was to record this myth-busting podcast. And if I put something on my to-do list that is a priority, I can't even go to the gym with a clear mind until that's done. So I'm going to bang this out, and then I'm going to go to the gym. I got a bench session, and I'm pretty excited for that. But first, nutrition myths. And if you've been listening to this podcast for the last couple episodes, you'll know that prbreaker.com, the home of PR Breaker Materia, the pre-workout I use, the pre-workout I recommend to my clients and to you Absolute Strength listeners, you can get a discount on that with the code HUNT10. I'll save you the spiel. I know I've said it the last few episodes. In my opinion, it's the best pre-workout on the market. It's study dosed, tastes great, gets the job done. prbreaker.com, HUNT10 is the discount code. And another thing that's kind of, I don't bring it up enough, but the term absolute strength, or the words absolute strength, it's not just a podcast. Before the podcast, in fact, it was a program. It was an ebook, the Absolute Strength ebook. And I know I do a little spiel at the end where I talk about it, but I'm sure most people either, once I get to the end, you either don't listen or you just end the podcast. So I do want to mention it today. The Absolute Strength program and podcast, both high value, really high value. But specifically the program is a program designed to get you stronger, increase general strength, but specifically the bench, squat, and deadlift. You will increase your squat, bench, and deadlift on this program. And you'll also learn a lot about training. I wanted to make it a book more than just a program. Yeah, there's a program at the end, but if you read the book, and actually by the time you get to the program, you're going to be informed. You're going to be knowing what you're doing, not just blindlessly following a program. You're going to know what you're doing. I'm going to go over some issues that most people have on the squat, bench, and deadlift from a technique side, from a programming side. What is periodization and why you should use it? If you're, put it this way, all right, here's the bottom line. Then we'll get into the nutrition mess. Here's the bottom line. If you are not following any type of plan when you're in the gym right now, and your goal is to get stronger, even if you want to build muscle, but specifically if you want to get stronger, if your main goal is to get stronger, and you don't have a program, if you couldn't tell me exactly weights, sets, reps that you're doing today as well as next week, then you need to get absolute strength. You just do. There's no excuse. Like if you aren't following a program and you want to get stronger, then I don't know what you're doing. Like you unfortunately you don't know what you're doing. But if you're following a different program and it's working for you, hey, keep going. Keep going with what's working. But if you're not, check out Absolute Strength. Hell of value. Link is in the show notes. All right, let's get into the nutrition myths. I'm done selling you. on my concepts. Now I'll break some myths. All right, so the first one is, again, we're starting very basic here. There are no bad foods. That's the first thing. I guess the myth would be that there are bad foods. That's always confusing. If I'm saying myths, I should probably say the thing that's not first. Regardless, there are no bad foods. And if there are no bad foods, then that also means there's no magically good foods. So all those articles that you're scrolling on Facebook and your friend posts up, 10 magical foods for fat loss, I'll save you the click. You don't need to eat those foods to lose fat. Can you eat them and lose fat? Yeah, 100%. You definitely could. They're probably good foods. They're probably foods that you should eat. I'm just saying that they're not gonna be magic for you. There's no superfoods. There's no superfoods. Are there foods that are more nutritionally dense, lower caloric value? Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Are there foods that help you diet, create more fullness? Things like vegetables? Yeah, definitely. They're great. But there's no bad foods. Maybe aside from artificially created hydrogenated oils, trans fats, probably shouldn't go out of your way to consume those. But even like carbs, all carbs, fine. Even some sugars, fine. Fat, all different fat sources, saturated fat, all that stuff, fine. Protein sources, fine. We got to stop thinking of nutrition in black and white, little tiny, eaten in a vacuum type of idea, because that's not what nutrition is. Nutrition's a big picture. Everything you eat in a day, everything you eat in a week, everything you eat in a month Let's start thinking of nutrition big picture, not in an individual food. Is this good? Is this bad? If it's good, I'll eat it. If it's bad, I won't eat it. For one, it's a terrible way to look at nutrition, but it just leads you to be unsuccessful. Eventually, it'll lead you to be unsuccessful. Because context is everything. So let me give you an example here. I think everybody would assume that something like candy, donuts, pizza. Just think of something that would be considered that universally bad. But the devil is always in the amount. And that goes for everything. It goes for drugs, it goes for food, goes for even water. Water can kill you if you drink too much of it, but you also need a lot of it. There's no free rides in physiology here. Always yin and yang. But back to the example. Think of all the bad foods, quote unquote bad foods. Now, what if I told you could eat those? You probably can't eat a bunch of them every single day, but you could scatter them throughout the week. We have a little bit here and there. And you can be super healthy and lose weight. That doesn't seem too crazy, and it's true. Also, and let's look at the flip side. Let's think of all the really good foods, the things that you would say are great. Look at all the superfood fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, all the stuff that's great. What if I told you could eat all those things, but be terribly unhealthy and overweight? Because that's also true. It wouldn't be because of those foods, just like it wouldn't be because of the bad foods that you were lean and healthy. It would be because of the overall diet. Okay? Caloric consumption, macronutrient consumption. There's a famous study where again, this isn't the end-all be-all to health, but it's part of the conversation here. There was a study done, a professor at a university, I think he obviously probably taught nutrition, wanted to prove the calories in, calories out debate. So what he did was he dieted, and it's actually been years since I looked at the study, so I can't give you the exact figures here, but essentially what he did was he dieted on Twinkies, I think mainly Twinkies and like other junk food. And I think he took maybe a protein supplement, maybe a vitamin supplement. But majority of his diet was things like Twinkies. And he lost weight. He lost weight because he was in a caloric deficit. He was eating less calories than it took to maintain his body weight. Now, of course, the downside to that is I think he even ate some vegetables too, a couple of vegetables. But I was going to say the downside to that, and anybody who's dieted using a flexible dieting approach, the downside is you'll get hungry if you're eating very calorically dense food. So foods that have a lot of calories per the amount of volume, so the amount of size of the food, and from a nutrient standpoint. So something like a Twinkie has a ton of calories in a small package and next to no nutritional value. So you eat it, you get, a couple hundred calories, and it does next to nothing nutritionally and next to nothing to satisfy your hunger. So if you're going to diet, so if you're going to be in a caloric deficit, making up a bunch of those types of foods, it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And that's really why bad foods get a bad rap. Things like sugar get a bad rap because it's hard to diet, hard to lose weight, hard to be in a caloric deficit when you're eating a lot of sugar because it's easy to overconsume. That's why when you take somebody who is overweight, and if you take out liquid calories, just right off the bat, take out liquid calories, that's the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest thing to knock down. Things like soda. If you're drinking soda and you want to lose weight, cut it out. Switch to diet. And I am going to talk about artificial sweeteners down the list here. It's on my list. Hopefully we can get to it. But just for, to not brush over it here, that's the least of your concerns. If you're overweight, you want to lose weight, switch from high sugar soda to diet soda, which contains no calories. There's some more things here where we talk about health, and it gets kind of screwy because I kind of want to talk from like a body composition standpoint. That's what most people who listen to this show are mostly concerned with. We're all like younger, healthy people, so we want to optimize being lean, getting stronger, building muscle. So sometimes that concept gets blurry in the overall scheme of health. But what's not blurry is, generally speaking, if you are overweight if you do something to get in better shape, better body composition, you lose fat, build some muscle, you're going to get healthier. Don't use, and this is a big point here. This is talking to the general people, because I have had this argument with people, which is kind of funny because it's normally the people that really shouldn't be arguing with me about nutrition tend to want to argue with me about nutrition. It's funny how that happens. But I've literally had arguments with people who are, let's just say, they have some weight to lose, but they want to argue that regular soda is somehow better for them than switching to a calorie-free diet soda because of artificial sweeteners. And what I will say is, okay, well, look, I'm going to defer to the research here. There's been research done, and again, it's take it with a grain of salt, whatever. I'm not saying you have to believe everything that the research shows, but the research shows that up to about 10 times your body weight, if you consume up to about 10 times your body weight in artificial sweeteners, it doesn't show any negative effects. Of course, again, it's a study and it has its limitations. It wasn't done in humans drinking 24 cans of soda a day over the course of 20 years. We don't know what that will do. But based on the evidence that we have, there's no health concerns with artificial sweeteners. There's just no health concerns with them. With all the information we have available to us, there's no health concerns with artificial sweeteners. But, again, a calorie-free drink has no calories. That's the key here. It has no calories. It is not increasing your caloric load for the day, as opposed to a soda, which has 200 calories in 12 ounces, 50 grams of sugar. Okay? 50 grams of carbohydrate in a soda. And you can drink soda and lose weight. Again, that's not the point here. The point is, if you are drinking and consuming a lot of calories, it's not leading to fullness. It's not providing nutritional value. It's just empty calories. That's the first thing to get rid of. First thing to get rid of. Very easy. Very easy. Kind of went off on a tangent here because what I really want to talk about was that there was no bad food. But I think I hammered that point home. You can be healthy and you can lose weight both by consuming any type of food. There's no food that's off limits. And there's no food that you need to ever consume. There's no like one special food that you always have to have. No, you don't have to eat kale. No, you don't. You don't have to eat goji berries. Actually, you probably shouldn't eat goji berries. Remember they were a thing at one point. And this kind of leads into the second thing I want to talk about. So whenever we say that there's no bad foods, the first couple of things that people say, sugar, which I kind of already talked about a little bit. We'll get into it a little bit more. And then red meat, egg yolks, the whole like cholesterol thing. What about cholesterol? And all right, so eating red meat and egg yolks, things that are high in dietary cholesterol, is that an issue? Well, again, going to the literature, the research that we do have, it doesn't seem that eating foods high in dietary cholesterol have a strong link to blood cholesterol levels. Again, I'm going to go back to this overarching theme that I want to keep talking about throughout this podcast. If you are unhealthy, you have an unhealthy body composition, you're overweight, you don't have a lot of lean body mass, you are somebody who probably has some weight to lose. If you do that, go from that to improving your body composition, building some muscle, losing some fat, that's the best thing you can do for your health. Regardless of anything else you're doing, okay? Just improving your body composition for most people. Again, you can look great on the outside and have bad health on the inside. You definitely can, but those are outliers. And you should never base arguments based off from outliers. It's kind of like when you talk about training programs and you say, well, so-and-so is huge, jacked, and strong, and he does, insert whatever program. He does a bodybuilding bro split, and he's huge and strong. That means bodybuilding bro splits are best for everybody. No, it doesn't. It just means that it worked for that one guy who was probably on steroids. Okay? So I guess the N of one, whenever there's an N of one, whenever there's one person who's done something, it doesn't mean dismiss it. It just means that, okay, yeah, there can be outliers of people who look great on the outside or terrible health on the inside, but most people, and then on the flip side, there can be people who are a little overweight, but pretty healthy. Again, those, I don't just want to say they're outliers, but they're few and far between. I don't think cholesterol, of course, I'm not a doctor. I should probably say that. I'm not a doctor. But I don't think eating, especially if you're eating lean red meat and you're having a couple eggs a day, there's a ton of benefits, ton of nutrient density in egg yolks. And if you've been listening to the podcast, a lot of episodes lately have been bringing up red meat, and I'm a big red meat fan. Don't think you need to eat red meat exclusively, or don't think you need to eat all your protein as red meat, but big fan of red meat. I eat it about once a day. Lean red meat about once a day. If you have, all right, let's say this. If you have high cholesterol, if it like runs in your family, okay, maybe then I would defer to your doctor. But even then, I think, man, it's tough. It's really tough. This is tough for me to say because I still think a lot of doctors give out bad advice. I think it's just they don't spend a lot of time researching nutrition. They're busy. They're not looking at the literature. They're not looking at what research is being done in 2018. They're probably deferring to what they've always said. And what do they always say if someone comes in? And this is what gets me mad. This is why I don't like blanket statements in general here. But if you defer to this happens in strength and conditioning and training and nutrition too, in this field, my field. But if you always just defer to what you've always said, you're probably eventually you're gonna be wrong. So you get someone, they're overweight, they need to lose some weight, and what does the doctor say? Well, you have high cholesterol, should probably avoid eggs, probably should avoid red meat, probably should avoid things high in dietary cholesterol. Okay, that might be decent, might be a decent recommendation. But here's the other recommendation: why don't you just focus on losing weight first, losing fat first? Let's just do that. Let's see what that does. And then I would bet that that's going to take care of a lot of the problems. Whereas just, okay, eliminate red meat, eliminate egg yolks, but then you don't really take care of your body weight, you're not going to improve anything. Or very rarely are you going to improve anything. Whereas if you are consuming some lean red meat, some egg yolks as part of, again, goes back to the first point here, goes back as part of a well-rounded, good nutrition diet overall, throughout an entire day, throughout an entire week, throughout an entire month, a good diet that has your calories, if you're trying to lose weight, set up to be in a deficit. If you're trying to build muscle, has a diet set up to, be in a slight caloric surplus so you are able to build muscle. And then you fill in foods to hit your protein totals, your carb and fat totals. Okay? As you can hear Lucy in the background, at least I can from my end. And this kind of leads to sodium as well. You see this a lot. This is another general recommendation, but this is more for blood pressure. But I will say this. Again, I'm not a doctor. I want to make that clear. I think everyone listening probably knows that. Would assume everyone knows that. But yeah, so if you have high blood pressure, you really don't want to go crazy with sodium intake. Because, again, sodium draws more water. It just draws water. Your blood gets thicker. It's not a great idea. But there is a difference. There is a difference between high blood pressure caused by having thicker blood than having high blood pressure because your arteries are clogged. But if your arteries are clogged, it's probably not a good idea to have thicker blood. But your body does an amazing job of regulating electrolytes, regulating sodium and water intake. So within a general guideline here, most people are fine, especially if you're eating quality foods. The only issue with sodium is if you're eating a ton of processed foods, a ton of really high sodium foods. Then you'll probably will have a problem going to eating buffets and just eating like a bunch of prepackaged meals. Just if you're eating like complete garbage, you'll probably have problems from a sodium standpoint. But most healthy people, most people interested in fitness, Most people training hard, sweating, and eating, foods like lean proteins and quality carb sources and things like that, things that don't have a lot of sodium in them, actually need to consume more sodium. That was something that Stan Efferding talked about, but something I've been talking about for years with my clients, and been talking about I don't even know when I started, implementing more sodium for people, but it's the exact opposite than what most people do. Like a lot of people who are interested in fitness, it's like, oh, well, you can't have sodium, and they start buying low sodium everything. And they're already eating like plain chicken breast. It's like, I can't have any sauces, can't have hot sauce. There's no calories in hot sauce, but can't have hot sauce because there's salt in it. Can't have seasoning on my chicken, there's salt in it. Can't season my steak, salt in it. Go out to a restaurant. Yeah, I want my steak cooked in nothing and no seasonings on it. Okay, well, again, sodium's not your problem. And again, this is funny because I've had these conversations with people. Again, not the people who probably should be trying to have an argument on nutrition, but people who, they have some weight to lose, and they want to argue over something like sodium. Like it causes me to hold water. That's why I'm gaining weight. I'm going to try cutting out my sodium, and that's going to make me lose weight. Maybe initially, maybe like the first day or two, you might drop a little water. Again, that's not saying that's healthy, not saying that's anything you should do, just generally, but things like that, things like cutting sodium, things like avoiding the bad foods, and it's an issue because it doesn't hit the real problem. If someone is overweight, what they're doing is they're consuming more calories than they're burning. So doing anything with sodium, doing anything with changing out specific foods, unless they're foods unless they take out a bunch of foods that are causing them to consume more calories and they're actively dropping their calories, then yeah, that'll work. But going back to sodium, bottom line is athletes, people who are health conscious, people who are training hard, probably need more, probably even see benefit to adding salt to your food. People who have a bunch of weight to lose probably don't need to do anything with your sodium. Just not even worry about it. Just start eating better. Start paying attention to your nutrition. Start making sure you're eating in a caloric deficit. Start worrying about nutrient density in foods like fruits and vegetables and how they provide more fullness and how they fit into your diet better. And don't worry about sodium. But if you're eating eating a bunch of processed foods like microwavable foods, canned foods, eating fast foods, things that have a crazy amount of sodium, that would be the only time I would probably say, okay, yeah, maybe we should lower sodium a little bit. That really just from like a health standpoint. Yeah. All right. More things here. Another one I want to talk about, the idea of meal frequency. And this one was actually specifically brought up when I was talking about intermittent fasting. Someone brought this question up, and this was one of the things where I thought this myth was like kind of talked about enough to where it wasn't a big thing anymore. But when I talked about intermittent fasting a couple episodes, one of the things that got brought up, which mind you, I didn't even really expect to be brought up, but someone's like, hey, so if you're on a diet, but you're doing intermittent fasting and only eating, 2 or 3 meals a day, doesn't eating 6 meals a day stoke your metabolism and make you lose weight better? Doesn't it make your metabolism faster? The answer is no, it does not. Meal frequency is irrelevant to creating any type of increased thermic effect of the food. So the thermic effect of food is the amount of calories it actually takes to eat and digest your food. So when you eat food, it requires some calories from the body standpoint to consume it and digest it. And at one point in time, it was thought that if you eat more frequently, so you essentially put your body through more stress, so it made it go through the digestion process more frequently, it increased the thermic effect of the foods. And it was shown not to be the case. So you can eat 1 meal a day, you can eat 6 meals a day. It comes down to how many calories you're eating at the end of the day. That's the overall thermic effect. Okay? It doesn't stoke your metabolism. It's not like a furnace. Okay. But actually, if you've ever done this, if you ever ate 6 meals a day, again, it's one of those bro science things that seems right because of how your body reacts to it. It seems right. So if you start eating more frequently, smaller meals more frequently, what happens? You start getting hungry more frequently. Okay? So then your body gets accustomed to eating that every 2 hours. So then what happens? You get hungry every 2 hours. So you start thinking in your head, you're like, oh shit, I'm getting hungry every 2 hours. My body's ready to eat quicker. My metabolism's increasing. I'm burning through these calories more. You're not. You're just getting hungry. Your body's getting accustomed to when it consumes calories. And the downside to dieting on more meals, now I'm not against higher meal frequency. Actually, a lot of times for this very reason, when I have clients who I want to put muscle on, we're trying to build muscle and we're struggling, I normally take a look. I'm like, all right, well, if you're only eating 3 meals a day, why don't we add a 4th? If you're only eating 4, why don't we add a 5th? For 2 reasons. One, is it going to stimulate your appetite a little bit? You're going to get hungrier. You're going to be ready for the next meal quicker. And 2, having more meals, having more feedings throughout the day makes it easier to get more calories. So when you're dieting and you think you have to eat 6 meals a day, what happens is you have to eat very small meals to hit your overall daily caloric intake that's required for you to lose weight, whatever that number is. So you're eating smaller meals and you're getting hungrier quicker. That's a recipe for disaster. That is going to lead you down wanting to cheat on your diet. You're pretty much always going to be hungry. So it seems counterintuitive, but eating larger meals, more spread out, tends to be easier and more effective for most people. 3 to 4 meals tends to be more effective than 6 or 7 meals. What I found working, in the field, working with 1,000 clients in the last 10 years. That's what I found. Lower meal frequency tends to work better. Again, not saying that higher meal frequency can't work as long as your calories and macronutrients are dialed in for your goals. That 100% can work. It really comes down to personal preference in that case and your schedule and how everything works out. But what I can tell you is 6 meals a day is not better than 3 or 4 meals a day. All right. Another thing. This was another specific question I got based off from one of those podcasts where I talked about how I'm utilizing some intermittent fasting. Someone asked, do I do anything specific post-workout? And the answer is no, I don't eat anything special post-workout. I don't have any type of special post-workout shake or any special post-workout meal. And I really want to touch on this because I think sometimes people still get the misconception or they think the myth that post-workout is the most important meal of the day and our bodies are primed for needing a bunch of glycogen and needing protein, a special protein shake like immediately after we work out. Most people don't need anything special post-workout. You don't need any special drink, any special shake. This is one of those concepts that was creating from the marketing of supplement companies. It's kind of the same with the meal frequency too, I think. I think the meal frequency thing kind of got started from the supplement companies too, because what happens if you start thinking you need 6 meals a day, no one can cook 6 meals a day. Well, not many people. Too damn time consuming. So what do? You start having a shake or 2 a day. So now you have 2 whey protein shakes a day. Because of course everyone knows that you need to have a protein source with every single meal, every single feeding. Or at least that's another myth that people thought. I could go into that too, but so you need a protein at every feeding. So you don't want to cook chicken or steak or fish or eggs or every 6 times a day. So you have 2 protein shakes. It makes it very convenient. Again, I love whey protein. I love protein because it does make it convenient to hit your overall daily protein requirements or your protein goals. But it was just a supplement company thing. Like, hey, okay, you got to have two protein shakes a day in order to keep your metabolism stoked. So you have 6 meals. It's false. Same thing with post-workout. It was like, there was a little bit of research that supported it initially. This is years back. So then the supplement companies just ran with it and was like, okay, you gotta have special fast-adjusting carbs. Then you gotta have a whey protein shake the second you put the weight down. Then there's been more research recently over the last 10 years that shows it's not really that important. Unless the only time it's important is if you're training multiple times a day. So if you are training very, very hard in the morning and in the afternoon, like if you're a CrossFit athlete and you are pushing it, redlining in the morning, and then you only have a couple hours of break of recovery before another training session, yeah, at that point, it might be beneficial to try to get those calories and the glycogen, some carbohydrates, some protein into the muscle as fast as possible. Otherwise, it's not that important. Another thing is, again, maybe there's a little bit more of a benefit if you are training fasted. So if you haven't eaten like 16 hours, then you train, okay, maybe then, and still I would probably argue that this is inconsequential, but maybe then there could be an argument for wanting to get some glycogen, some carbohydrates, some protein into the muscle as quick as possible. But in all other cases, if you're training in the middle of the day and you had a pre-workout meal, if you had any type of pre-workout meal, no, you're not going to see any benefit from a post-workout shake any more than just eating within, just a general recommendation of just, okay, you're going to eat throughout the day. Just try to have a meal an hour or two pre-workout. Probably you could even train fasted. It's not an issue. You could definitely do that. And then try to have a meal within a couple hours post-workout. You do that, you have a protein feeding pre and post, that's all you'd ever really need to worry about. Just have a normal meal pre and post. And this kind of gets screwy because people, again, when you're dieting, you start and you think that you need to have some special sugar shake with protein post-workout, and you're drinking a bunch of calories, but then you're also trying to diet, you're also trying to lose fat, and you're also trying to get shredded for summer, but you're drinking a 600-calorie shake every day. You're like, damn, I'm starving all day because my other meals have to be light because I got to fit in my 50 grams of carbs post-workout and 50 grams of protein post-workout that I don't even count as a meal because it's just a shake I'm having post-workout. Again, those calories count, okay? So you gotta weigh it. Is that really gonna help me diet, or would just eating a normal meal an hour later of chicken, sweet potato, and broccoli or something or whatever, is that gonna be better? I would always lean towards the whole food in that case. Another thing that kind of goes along the same lines here is the idea that post-workout is some type of magical time period where the calories don't count. I've heard I've heard reputable coaches say this, that it doesn't really matter what you eat post-workout. Like, just, you can eat a bunch of food post-workout. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's somehow, like, because the training effect creates some type of process in your body to where you can eat a bunch more calories and it doesn't count. Yeah, I mean, training does create some things in the body that allows your body to be a little bit more adaptive to calories post-workout. But the calories still count. They're not irrelevant. you still got to be in a caloric deficit. You still got to, create a caloric surplus if you want to gain size, deficit if you want to lose fat. Post-workout's not, those calories aren't irrelevant. They still matter in the big picture. Also, kind of staying with the post-workout window here, is you can have fat post-workout. Again, it might slow down the absorption, but we just talked about that speed doesn't really matter. So the idea that you can't have fat post-workout is another one of those myths. You can have fat post-workout. You can have fat pre-workout. Actually, I kind of recommend fat pre-workout. I don't think, if you want something to, fuel to sustain, the energy to sustain your workout, having a little bit of fat in your pre-workout meal could be beneficial there. Yeah, I think we talked about that enough. All right, next thing I have written down, which I probably should have talked about during the 6 meals a day talk, about protein intake and how your body can't handle or absorb more than 20, 30 grams of protein in one sitting. Again, this kind of goes to the meal frequency thing. Well, if your body can't absorb that much protein in one sitting, then maybe it would be beneficial to just have smaller protein meals throughout the day. Well, two things that makes this kind of dumb. One, your body can absolutely 100% absorb more than 30 grams of protein in one sitting. What would happen if your body couldn't absorb it? What would happen to the protein? Like, say you eat 100 grams of protein, but your body can only absorb 30 grams at a sitting. What would happen? Would you just have, like, explosive diarrhea or something? Like, what would you do with the excess of 70 grams of protein that you consumed? I'm thinking on this. What would happen? I'm not sure what would happen. Probably explosive diarrhea. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter. it will just take longer. So if you eat 100 grams of protein, it's just going to take your body longer to assimilate it. It takes longer to handle it. But you absolutely can. And think from an evolutionary standpoint, what would happen if your body could only consume 30 grams of protein at a time, and you're a hunter-gatherer, and you kill a big buffalo, and that was the only food you had, so you ate like 3 pounds of meat in one sitting? What if you could only absorb, and what even just defines one sitting? These are the bro science things that when you start asking questions, they don't really make sense. But one sitting, what defines it? Regardless, let's say you kill a buffalo, you eat 100 grams of protein, 200 grams of protein in one sitting. That was the only food you had because you were starving. And your body can only absorb 30 grams of protein. And everything else just kind of magically disappears, we'll say. All the other nutrients, you couldn't absorb more than 30 grams of protein, so that's all you got for the day. Okay, it would make it very hard to survive. It would just make it very hard to survive. You wouldn't be getting the caloric intake, because if you're not absorbing it, it would just be going through you. It just doesn't make sense. Now, on the flip side, maximizing protein synthesis is another thing. So around 30 grams of protein, around 3 to 4 grams of leucine. So if you give a high-quality protein source like a whey protein or red meat, chicken, animal sources of protein, high-quality, complete protein, in 30 to 40 grams, that will have roughly 3 to 4 grams of leucine, the amino acid that is directly responsible for maximizing protein synthesis. So if you consume about 40 grams of a high-quality protein source, you probably maximize protein synthesis. That doesn't mean that's like a limit. Like, you can consume more, and you probably should. If you're only eating 3 meals a day and you're a large meal, you got to get 200 grams of protein in a day, then yeah, you probably should consume more than 30, 40 grams a sitting. But that might be all that's required to maximize protein synthesis. But then here's where, so then I can hear the 6 meals a day people right now. They're like, see, here's some information, Kyle. Like, you might want to rethink what you're saying. Well, there's also a refractory period of about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours, where you can't really maximize it again. So if you're eating every 2 hours and you think you have to eat every 2 hours, well, you're not really going to maximize protein synthesis again within those 2 hours. Big picture, these are very detailed. Like, if you're not like understanding this, it's fine. It's not a big picture. It's not like a big picture item here. The big picture item is, let's say you have to eat 170 grams. You're a 170-pound guy, relatively lean, wants to build muscle or wants to lose fat, and your goal is to eat 170 grams of protein a day. That's your main point when it comes to protein. Don't worry about how much grams of protein you can eat in a serving, in a sitting, whatever. Don't worry about protein synthesis. Just eat 170 grams of protein in a day. You do that consistently, you're going to be good. And really, for everybody listening, protein is very important from a dieting standpoint, from a performance standpoint, from a muscle building standpoint. I know sometimes, I even thought for a period of time, like initially when you first get into lifting weights, it's like, okay, you learn about protein. Like, it's like the one macronutrient that seems like it's so important. And then eventually you get to the point where it seems like it's overblown. Like, it's not really as important. But then you start working with people. You start working with clients, and you start working with hundreds of people, and you realize that, okay, there's a good reason why protein is emphasized so much. Because most people, like if you take most people, your average person, someone who's not actively trying to consume a lot of protein, and you look at their diet, they're not consuming enough protein. The average person is not consuming enough protein. Now, there was a point where I thought that the average bro in the gym was consuming too much, and that might still be the case. Because there was a point in time, again, I think this is another thing the supplement companies did, in addition to the meal frequency thing and the needing post-workout shakes thing, was needing more protein thing. They're like, well, shit, let's start pumping out information that you need 1.5 grams per pound, 2 grams per pound of body weight. Because if you need 400 grams of protein a day, shit, you're going to have a bunch of shakes, bunch of scoops of protein in a day. And that's what happened. So then people started thinking they needed a ton of protein in a day. So they started drinking more whey protein shakes. But really, I mean, we could get into this, but around a gram per pound of body weight is just like a very good general recommendation. If you're over like 25% body fat, okay, you probably should go off from like a lean body mass or just go a little bit less, maybe like 0.8 grams per pound, or even like depending on how much body fat you have, maybe like 0.6 grams per pound, or around 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, 1.2 grams per pound of lean body mass. Or even just to make this super simple, because as I'm saying all this, I'm like, well, shit, I want to make this very simple and I'm making it complicated. 1 gram per pound of your goal weight is a good idea. That's a pretty good idea. 1 gram per pound of your goal weight. Unless you're lean and looking to lose fat, then just, I mean, if you're lean, just in general, if you're lean, if you're relatively lean, if you're a male and you're around like really under 15, 20%, if you're under, we'll say under like 20% body fat as a male, and under like 25% as a female, under like 30%. So we're like not saying like you need to be shredded for this, but if you're relatively lean, 1 gram per pound of body weight is going to be pretty good guideline for you. Pretty good guideline. All right, what else do I have here? All right. I want to talk about carbs a little bit. We were talking about protein. Let's talk about carbs. 2 things specifically I want to talk about carbs. 1, the idea that you can't eat carbs at night, or really you can't eat any food at night. And also, or morning. I mean, there's like the whole like carb backloading thing. You can only eat carbs at night. But the big myth here is that a lot of times people think that you can't consume carbohydrates at night, and also think you can't eat at night. And somehow eating late at night, I've heard people ask me this, like, hey Kyle, isn't eating at night like the worst thing you could do? Is it like the worst thing you could do? That's like going to lead to body fat automatically? No, it's not. You can eat carbs at night and you can eat at night. 100%. Again, it goes back to the big picture. What's your diet like? What's the overwhelming look at your diet? Let's take a big picture look. Are you eating in a caloric deficit? Yes? Okay, you can eat at night then. You know what I mean? Even if you're trying to eat in a surplus. If you're trying to eat in a surplus, can you eat at night? Yes, you can. Can you eat in the morning? Yes, you can. What about the afternoon? Yes, you can. It all matters what at the end of the day it totals up to. Okay? I hammered that point home, but it's very, very important. Why is the idea that eating at night is bad? Well, let's look at this. Let's break this down a little bit. It makes sense. It's another one of those things that makes sense, but it's just not true. It makes sense, but it's not true. Well, if you go throughout your day, you eat your breakfast, you eat your lunch at work or at school, you come home, eat dinner with your family, like you probably eat decent. Like, you know what I mean? Like you probably didn't have a bunch of shit throughout the day. Like on your average day, you probably woke up, had like a normal breakfast, packed your lunch or bought lunch or whatever, was like a normal lunch that people get. Then you ate dinner with your family. Might not have been a great diet, but it probably wasn't terrible. When does the terrible shit start to come? As snacks at night. That's when you're sitting down watching Netflix eating chips. That's when you're sitting down, that's when you're having ice cream. That's when you're having cookie, whatever. Like that's when shit hits the fan, is at night. So I just assume that once people started getting the idea, well, you can't eat at night, so they just cut that out. What'd they cut out? All the shit in their diet. Then they started losing weight or whatever and started making progress. You're like, oh, well, yeah, see, all that, I was eating at night and was gaining a bunch of fat. Well, you just cut out all the junk food in your diet. Just cut out all the high calorie food you're eating. That makes sense, doesn't it? It's one of those things where it's not really it's just a nice strong correlation there to you eating junk food at night, and that's why you were gaining weight because you're eating at night. But it wasn't the cause of it. The cause wasn't because you ate that food at night. If you ate it in the morning, you'd still be gaining weight. You'd still be in the same spot as you were. You were eating the food still. So that and I think the idea that you're getting ready to go to bed, like your body's winding down, like you're not going to need those calories. Yeah, that again, that's one of those things that kind of makes sense. Like it's not like you're going to, need fuel, need energy, so you're eating a bunch of carbs to fuel a workout or something. But again, I want you to just think of nutrition in a 24-hour period and think of things like, okay, well, if I eat carbs at night, well, what if you train in the morning? Well, that's beneficial to eat carbs at night because you're going to be fueling the workout in the next morning, or just you're eating carbs at night because that's to hit your caloric and carbohydrate totals for the day. Like, we don't have to think of things so in isolation. Generally speaking, whenever you're talking about nutrition and you're talking about things in isolation, it's very important to take a step back and look in the big picture. I felt like I've said that 100 times in this podcast, but that's pretty much the answer to everything. All right, a couple more things. I want to wrap this up because I got to get to the gym. On carbs, low carb versus high carb. Or really what that means is low carb versus low fat. Because if you're dieting on low carbs, that means your fat intake's a little bit higher. Protein should always stay the same whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight. You need adequate protein, regardless. Should never really your diet, your protein intake should never really change either. So I've talked about this before too, but when you're on a diet that is percentage based, so something like a zone diet where you're eating, we're really just any type of, even if it's a macronutrient based diet, so it's a flexible diet and might seem to be set up pretty well, but it's percentage based. We're eating 30% of your diet from protein, 30% fat, and whatever, 40 carbs, and then you just reduce calories. What happens is your protein intake goes down, and that's not what you should do. Your protein intake should always pretty much stay the same. If anything, towards the end of a diet and you lost a lot of weight, your protein needs actually go up a little bit, per your body weight. But for the most part, just think of it as your protein intake stays constant. When you start dieting, you have two options. The main option is just, you got to reduce caloric intake. So how do you go about that? Well, you can lower carbs or you can lower fats. And if you lower one, then that means you have more calories to use on the other. So if you go low carb, you have more fat calories to use. If you go low fat, it means you have more carb calories to use. And for most people, that's all you got to know. Are there some people that respond better to low carbs? I think, just going based off from, again, working with 1,000 clients the last 10 years, I think there are some people that respond better to lower carbs. But again, I don't know if this is like so much from a physiological level as it is from like just a lifestyle and psychological level. Like I'll take me, for example. I think I could probably, just using, the experience, use myself as a test dummy essentially over the last 15 years, I found I can pretty much diet on whatever. However, it's much easier for me, and I've been more successful dieting on higher carbs for me. It fits my lifestyle better. It fits what the foods I like better. It just fits as soon as I go low carb, I immediately feel like I'm dieting, even if the calories are a little bit higher. Just from how I feel, it could be all psychological. It probably mostly is, but just how I feel and the foods I like to eat. As soon as I go low carb, I go, yep, I'm dieting. And I could be eating like 3,500 calories. I mean, I haven't really done this, but I've been eating close to 3,000 calories on low carb, and I feel like I'm dieting. But if I eat 3,000 calories a day with a higher carb diet, I'm like, oh, I'm good. I could even diet on less. Like I start cutting calories away, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. I still feel good. Still, my energy's still good. I'm good. Switch to low carb, I go, oh, I'm dieting. I could feel it. So people like me, you just try to set up your diet in a way that's seamless. It's as easy as possible. Again, this is why I hate cookie cutter blanket statement diet. This is why, honestly, and this is I'm going to do a video on this. I'm going to get back into my YouTube game a little bit, and I have a video planned where I want to go over the vertical diet because I've got a lot of questions about it after we did it with Stan, and I love Stan. I love all the information. He provided a ton of information, a ton of great information, but I hate any diet that is restrictive in food choices. Like, I never would tell anybody, okay, you can only eat red meat for your protein. Your only carb source is white rice. Your only fruit is an orange. Your only vegetables are spinach and a carrot. To me, that's bullshit. Like, okay, yeah, it's not that good of a diet. I'm just being real. Like, it's just not that good. You got to have more flexibility. Like, you do. Like, long term, you need more flexibility. This is going by working one-on-one with 1,000 people in the past 10 years. Like, you can. That diet will work very well for as long as you can stick to it. As long as you can be consistent with that, it's great. And I could even argue, well, there's probably a benefit to adding more fruits and vegetables just from a wider range of micronutrient standpoint. But just the idea, I just don't like restrictive diets. Because then what happens is, in the real world, people are like, oh, well, this is the diet. Got to eat these 10 foods. As soon as 11th food gets brought into the equation, they're off the diet. When in reality, they're not off the diet. But as soon as they had to, I was eating out, can't get steak today, I'm eating chicken. Well, I already screwed up the diet. bring on dessert. You know what I mean? Like trust me, it seems crazy, but this is what happens. This is what happens. The psychology of a dieter can be crazy. I've done it. My clients have done it. You've done it. You get crazy when you're dieting. And you get this, even if you don't have a black and white idea process on dieting, when restrictive diets lead to that. And I'm not saying like a flexible diet isn't restrictive. Any diet is restrictive. Any diet is hard. Any diet you do, it's going to be hard. But the more flexible to your lifestyle, and if flexibility to your lifestyle is pretty rigid, it's probably a good thing. As long as if you can stick to something that's pretty strict, but you can be consistent with it, you're probably going to be more successful. It just is. I mean, I found that as well. But you got to have some built-in flexibility. You got to have some built-in flexibility. And part of that is recognizing that some people are going to do good on low carbs just because that's what they enjoy. They enjoy eating higher fat foods. And if they have to cut out higher fat foods, they're going to feel like they're dieting. Some people like me, if I have to cut out higher carb foods, if I have to cut out sweet potatoes and my rice and fruits and loading up on veggies and oatmeal and things like that, I feel like I'm dieting. So, again, there's a huge psychological component to this. There's also the physiological component, but there's also just a lifestyle component. When I set up a diet, I want to create a diet that you can stick to and be consistent with long term. It's going to be as easy as possible to stick to. For some people, that's one way, and for others, it's another. And again, sometimes it's flexible dieting, and sometimes it's a kind of a different form of flexible dieting, and sometimes it's intermittent fasting, and sometimes it's whatever. We have a lot of tools to use. I like to use all of them. I don't like to cut out anything. You know what I mean? If I don't have to. If we have to, if that's presented and we find through trial and error or just through observation that one way it just seems to work better, then that's what we're going to do. And if that means we're going to cut out a bunch of foods, then well, guess what? I guess we're going to try cutting out foods for a little bit and see if this works. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Results. Results are what matter. Not anybody's ego, not whatever anybody thinks is right. Just get results. Just get results. I was going to go into supplements, and I have some supplement myths, but that might turn into an entire other podcast. I want to end it right there. We're done. We are done with the Absolute Strength Podcast. Hope you enjoyed the nutrition myth episode. I feel like I could go on for days with this one. I literally, as I'm talking, like I can think of like 10 more things that, I have a couple more things written down, but I have like 10 more things that I could probably extrapolate on and go on and on. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed the nutrition myth episode, as always, please tell one friend, and as always, let me know. Shoot me an email, hit me in the DMs at Hunt Fitness on Instagram. Let me know you like this episode. If you want more nutrition myths, if you want more solo episodes, if you want more just myth episodes, if you want more information episodes, whatever you want. If you have a specific guest you want me to bring on, hit me up. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Peace. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Absolute Strength Podcast. I know I had a ton of fun producing it for you. And before you go, if you could just drop me some feedback, I'd love it. I love reading your feedback. So you can go over to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating, write a little review, what you think of the podcast. I absolutely love it. I read every single one. But it's cool if you don't want to do that. I get it. No one wants to really go out of their way to do anything, let alone write a review. But I want to get your feedback. So drop me a line on Instagram at Hunt Fitness, or on Facebook, Kyle Hunt, or on Twitter, or send a pigeon or something. I don't know. I just want to hear your feedback. So if you want to give me some feedback, let me know what you think. Hit me up on Instagram at Hunt Fitness. And before you go, I have one last thing I want to say. I have a program I want you to check out. It's actually called the Absolute Strength Program, and the link is in the show notes. It's a program I designed to help increase my own squat, bench, and deadlift. And I got pretty strong off of it, and I think you're going to like it. It's a great book. Thousands of people have got amazing results from it. It's in the show notes. All right, guys. Until next time, until next episode, peace.